The recording is also started. Perfect. Right. I know few people are asking some off-topic questions in the chats. I'll just acknowledge them once I complete one part of the one part of the lecture, right? And then we can talk about the all those questions. So let me open my whiteboard, and that was something from a different class. But anyways, agenda that we are talking about today is introduction to HTML. I know it's too small. The font. Yep. Now I believe it's visible to everyone. Okay. Yeah. So in the agenda, we'll basically be talking about the introduction part of HTML. Okay. For the people who have not been, who have not encountered with HTML any time, right? जिन्होंने HTML के बारे में सुना नहीं है, they do not know how we are supposed to work with HTML, what is the reason behind, and what sort of the basic prerequisite thing that we do while creating our web pages. So we'll do all those type of basic things there, right? Basics of HTML is the thing that I am going to call it. In that, we will talk about basic doc type declarations first of all, or before that, even structure of the page, structure of HTML document. We'll talk about, right, how it is divided into head part, body part, and those other tags bhi kya hote hain, attributes kya hote hain. We will talk about all of this, and then we can talk about some basic formatting with HTML. Right. So this is a short agenda that I've written. बहुत सारी miscellaneous चीजें we are going to talk about them in the book basic these pointers. With that, I hope we can actually begin with the class. Let me quickly go through if you guys have any quick questions. How much time React.js is? Again, this is a very specific question that we'll take when we'll go to the React part, because as I've said कि whenever we are starting with this thing, right, I would recommend कि पहले आप उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा excited रहो, उसके बारे में curious रहो, rather than distracting your minds to React में क्या होगा और Node.js में क्या होगा. That is why I'm skipping this part. Timings ka we are I again don't want to have the discussion right now. That can be done with the I think the operation team. आप वारुण को और लोगों को ये चीजें convey कर सकते हैं, and then we can arrange according. Anyways, I believe we are good to start now. So the very first thing that we will start with is when we are creating web pages, the very first thing that we will need is obviously having a structure of them. Understand it with one example, that when you are building a house, right, the very first thing what you need is, obviously you need a blueprint. आपको पहले design तो चाहिए होगा, but that is a secondary part. When you're actually building it, you need to lay out the structure. You need to lay out the foundation, right? That maybe there are going to be 10 floors. In every floor, there has to be a living area. There has to be a common area. There has to be a maybe any specific rooms and kitchen areas, pantry and washroom areas. So you basically design or you basically lay out a structure, right? The similar thing happens while you're actually developing a web page or a complete website or whatever it is, right? In that, the very first thing is you need the layout. And to create a layout, what do you need? You need something like a markup language, which is HTML that we use to create our web pages, right? Ab HTML kya hai? How is it a markup language? How is it able to give a structure? And if it is able to give a structure, how does that structure look like? Okay, ये सारी चीजें we'll try to discuss with the current discussion that I will do. Is that HTML, if I'll talk about, HTML simply stands for Hypertext Markup Language. I should write it here. HTML, it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And as we have discussed this in the starting basics of programming, that it is not a programming language, it is a markup language, which means that it helps you give a structure of your page, and it's not actually used for writing the logics of your page, right? आप अपने page का logic जो है HTML से नहीं लिख सकते हो, बस आप structure इसे बना सकते हो. I'm also using some part of Hindi in between. Although whatever I'm saying in Hindi, it's already conveyed in English part, or it's just an extension of thing that I'm saying in Hindi. If you ever feel that I'm using too much of Hindi, you can let me know in the chats, and I'll act accordingly. I'll just switch the mode. I'll strictly switch to the English part, because I have received a couple of requests from people that okay, English is good, but we still are not able to connect completely. So just using a bit of Hindi in between. I hope that doesn't bother you. So yeah, hypertext markup language. And how does it works? What superpowers does it give? It basically functions on top of something which we call as tag, right? Or tags, you can say. Tag is sort of a it's sort of an instruction which you can give to your HTML file, which will obviously give different type of structure, or which will give different type of elements in your page. For an example, take one example that you are writing your autobiography, and you want to get it published. ठीक है, आप अपनी autobiography लिखना चाहते हैं and you want to publish, you want to get it published. So whenever you write that autobiography on your own, on your WordPad or maybe by pen, you will not give the formattings. You'll not say, okay, I highlight this word in the actual book. I mean, you'll not start highlighting it. You'll not start writing different colors in that book, right? It's not like that. What you do is you basically write in a normal font and you mark some things. You say that, okay, मेरे को ये line heading में चाहिए. I want this line to be as a heading. So you'll just maybe double underline that. Maybe you want a specific thing to be in bold part. You'll say, I'll just enclose it with a bracket or something so that the publisher will understand that if this line is enclosed with a bracket, that means it has to be bolded. If the line has a double underscore, that means it has to go as a heading of your particular chapter or any specific things. So these type of formattings or these type of markups you can give into your text, plain text, which your publisher will understand and will act accordingly. Similarly, tags are some type of commands or some type of annotation that we will use. It's not exactly an annotation, but it is some sort of similar to that. एक कुछ sort of annotation जो आप use करोगे, जो आपका HTML समझेगा, your HTML will understand those annotation that you're using and will accordingly transform them, right? So this is what a tag can be understood in a very nice way. To understand it, right, I'll just give you one simple example. I would be using maybe CodePen. I think it's the best example. It's a good example to start with it. I don't know exactly if I am not logged in or what. Just 1 second, let me just log in with my one account. Yes, right. And I will try to create one simple pen of HTML and CSS. Yeah, don't worry about what is CSS, what is JavaScript. Don't worry about anything, right? Where is this HTML document coming from? Anything, don't need to worry about. It's just one example that I'm showing you. That assume this is a editor where whatever you're going to write, you're going to see the output in this white area, right? It's just that you'll say, hello world. This is one custom that we follow as a programmer, that every time we are starting a new stuff, we write this word of hello world, right? From the computer's perspective. Anyways. So what I've written hello world, and you are able to see the exact outcome written in the output window. What if I want this hello world to be boldified, or maybe I want this text to have an underline below it? What I should be using as an HTML part is I should be using a tag here, right? So a tag looks something like this. This is usually how a tag looks like. It looks usually like this. I'll dissect this for you also, but I hope you can see that I have used this special symbol. And after using this special symbol, I'm able to see a text with a different formatting that I was expecting. मेरे को चाहिए था text में underline हो. I wanted the text to be underlined. And after using this sort of different annotation, I got a different outcome. And not only this, you can use a couple of different things. Just like you can use a B tag around here to get a text into the boldified terms. And that's how it looks like. So this area that you can see, this specific thing is what we call as tag in HTML. I hope that you are able to resonate with. If that is you're able to resonate, then that's much of the thing. Now we can come back to the original discussion. That is one thing I wanted to show you before we actually start with the structure of the document, before we actually create our web page. Because you need to have a mental clarity of how does a tag look like and what specific functionality does it give to the outcome. Okay, the main thing that we are going to talk about in HTML is tags, or sometime we will also talk about attributes, right? We will talk about what attribute is when we will go to that particular. I believe all of us are into a comfortable space now. We can move simply to the next point. One more acknowledgement which I want to give here is that I know majority of the people here already know what a tag is, already know what an HTML part is. They might already have created things like that. So it's nothing that we are going to take all the classes in the same pace. It's just that everyone has to get comfortable, has to get acclimatized with the following stuff. So that's why we are taking first initial 1 or 2 classes in a little slow paced manner and in a little layman manner, so that everyone can relate it. In the moving classes, we will obviously boost up the pace. We'll obviously make it comfortable for everyone, right? So that, it's not too slow, it's not too fast. Yeah. With that note, हमने HTML देख लिया. We have seen what an HTML looks like and how does it functions, right? So HTML is this, but how does an HTML document look like? Where will you create that file? This is just a dummy thing that we have done. We have not actually created a web page. To create a web page, I hope we have discussed this earlier, that you need to have a code editor on your system, to which I might have suggested you to go with VS Code. You can even go with the Sublime Text. You can go with the IntelliJ. You can go with any other one. If you are brave enough, you can even go with Notepad++ or Notepad also, right? If you are brave enough. So I think VS Code is a safe pick. So what you need to do is you need to start off by creating a folder. I'll just do one thing. I'll just just try to place it accordingly here. And I'll create a new folder and I'll say Cuvette September batch, right? And I'll open this in my VS Code. This is the thing that I use to open a specific folder in your VS Code. You can use any other ways, right? Maybe you can open your folder from going into file, then open a folder. It's totally up to you. I'm not going into these nitty-gritties of how do you open a folder, how will you open a file, and things like that. I'm just assuming that you'll be able to figure out how a folder opens and etc. And why I'm specifically opening a folder is because it is good to maintain the relevant thing into a relevant folders. Either you can just create a random file in a random folder and you can start working with it, but it's a good practice if you have a folder maintain in which you are doing a specific module. It will help you out in the revision purpose. It will help you out in tracking your progress also, and will give you a mental clarity that okay, and will give you mental motivation that okay, I have done so and so things, and now I should be good at this particular thing. So that being said, I am again going to create a nested folder here. एक और folder इसके अंदर I'm going to create, and this is how we create a new folder, and I would call it as HTML, right? Because we are going to start with HTML from the following folder, inside which this is the space wherein we are going to create our first HTML based file or first file that will open in our web. How do we do that? We basically obviously can hit a new file option from here, and we can write whatever name you want to give. Maybe let's say first.html, right? .html I'm giving because whenever you're creating an HTML file, you have to make sure that your computer understands, okay, this is a HTML file, and you're going to write HTML code inside here. So that is what I have done. You can either go for .htm extension also. It's not necessary that HTML has to be followed, but generally majority of the people only follows the .html. So it's better if you directly do .html rather than choosing a .html format. Right. So ye cheez karke, now you have created a folder. Now you have created a file inside which we are going to understand how does a structure of an HTML looks like, and what are the components of having an HTML file, and how we can plan the content of our page accordingly. Any questions? Any quick questions before we move to that point? We will take that question, HTML and HTML5, and what we will learn in this course. Yeah, I am proceeding in English only. Don't worry. For some bits and pieces, and the information that I've already conveyed in English, or maybe the extended type of sentences that I'll use, I might use some Hindi in between. Right? Don't worry about that point. That you're going to miss something if you don't know Hindi. We will talk about HTML, HTML5 में क्या difference है. We'll talk about what we are learning. I'll just begin with the structure of the components of your HTML first. Right. When we talk about structure of your HTML document, right? I should even write it. Again, I'm sort of a lazy person when it comes to writing so many things. But anyways, not this, but this only. Sorry. Yeah. Structure of HTML document or HTML file. In that case, right, two main components, or I would say component would be better. In that, two main part that goes into your HTML document is there goes a head part, right, and then there goes a body part. Not body part, but this body as a part and head as a part, right? And what happens is try to understand or try to relate it with the human example that you have a person, the two main components of a person that you can identify or that you can categorize it into. One is a head part where all the sort of pre-processing or sort of resource linking stuff happen, and the body where all of the major things like the components, what will show onto your page, how will it show on the page, and the remaining things about what is presenting or what is getting used, or what is getting presentable to the user is actually written in the body part, right? So two main parts I've already told. In the head part, generally what we do, we have already written this. We have already explained it. There goes the linking part. There goes a resource linking part, or sometimes there also is a hide. There is also the title of your page, right? Title and the resources part generally go in the title part. I'm writing it by pen only. I don't know how better handwriting I could use, but that's it. Title and the resources part, we can say. With resources, there is miscellaneous things. You might say that, sir, we are using maybe meta tags. This is not exactly a resource. We are using a CSS linking file. This is not exactly a resource, but miscellaneously, I can say this is title and a resource. All the visual manner, all the other thing, all other stuff goes into the body part. Right? This is a broad structure of having your HTML document. We have created, sorry, just 1 second, can you give? Yeah, sorry. I had a different tab opening. Just I was just clearing it out. Yes. So as I was saying, that what I was saying. Yeah, that we have a document ready here. What we need to do is we need to create the we need to lay out the components here, and we need to create the component. So the very first thing that we do is I'm writing a very layman structure here, right? Don't just directly come up and say that, sir, this is not the correct structure. Why are you teaching that wrong structure? I'm going step by step, right? So the very nice structure that I can write is this, that I have a HTML. HTML is itself a tag. Yeah, HTML is itself a tag. And this is what I can say, that whatever I'm going to write between those tags from this H1, from this HTML till this HTML is going to be the part of the HTML that I will write, right? This is what I've done. Inside which two main components, what I've told head is the main component here. And apart from head, we have another thing that we call as by the name of body. So this is a rough structure of how your document or how your HTML file looks like, in which head is a part wherein you'll write all the resources part, resources to be loaded or used throughout the page, or throughout the document. In the body part, everything that is visible, everything that is visible to the user is basically written in the body, right? That is a very layman structure. But when we'll actually talk about that, whatever code you'll write, what outcome you see, or what is the code behind written, what is the code written behind that, it's not exactly the same structure. It is a more refined structure of doing that. This what we are talking about is a HTML, right? As someone was asking, like HTML5, and what is the difference between both of them, and what are we going to learn in this case? HTML5 is nothing but it's just like the recent version of HTML that we are using, right? With different version, with the initial days of HTML when it has started, it has very limited features. It didn't support multimedias, it didn't support multiple other things initially, right? As we proceeded with the advancements, new features or new tags have been added to it. So HTML5 is the latest one that we use. And the difference that we do with HTML and HTML5 is that first thing is there are certain tags which are not available in HTML, which obviously are available in HTML5. Second thing, there's a very visual difference that you can see. This could be one of the template of an HTML document, but when I will show you how does the template or how does the boilerplate code or the starter code of an HTML5 look like, it looks sort of slightly different than this last one. And what I will do to just replicate it is I'll just use this exclamatory mark and I'll hit enter it. This is a shortcut, or I would say, in layman terms, this is a cheat code that I've, what do you say? I have activated, right? And this all is all possible because of the VS Code and the features that it gives us. So what you can see right now in front of you is a basic, boilerplate code or the starter code of how your HTML looks like. There could be multiple things that you are confused with. Maybe this meta tag is something that you might be not sure about. So what we can do, maybe we can remove it for the second. I'll just do one thing. I'll just comment it out. What happened? I'll just comment it out. I hope you know what our commenting is. Commenting basically means the code will stay here, but your maybe HTML compiler is not the thing that we say. But anyways, right, your browser is not going to read it, and it's not going to process it, right? So this is one thing that I've hidden. Other thing that you can see, which is different from the last discussion, is that we have a different declaration here. We have a doc type declaration, what we like to call at the line number 1, which is denoting that whatever sort of HTML that you are writing or that is written below is a HTML version 5, and your browser should support all the tags that you have used with this HTML. जो चीजें आपने HTML में लिखी है ना, whatever tags you have used with HTML, your browser must be supporting it because this is a version 5 of your HTML that you've written. Right. First thing that I hope is getting cleared out, that the whole purpose of writing this line is telling your browser that this is a HTML file that they are HTML5 that we are using. Second thing that you can see right here is also an extension of tag that we will talk about what is an attribute. For the time being, we can just let it be. We can just ignore it. Rest, I believe you can see that it's still the same, right? There is almost nothing different from what we have seen earlier and what we have used as a starter code of an HTML file, right? Almost same hai. Ek ye cheez different thi, only this thing was different, and slightly one different thing was there only. Apart from that, everything seems to be fine. So that is a difference, or that is a difference between starter code of HTML and HTML5. I hope you've got that first point. I will come to all these points about doc type HTML, about meta tags, and about this lang attribute. I'll make you, understand all those points, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. Now, if this is making sense, I hope we can proceed ahead. And one more question I can see. Do we have to remember the... No, you do not need to remember it. This is one good advice I would like to share in the very starting, that whenever you will work with HTML, whenever you'll work with CSS, right, there is a lot of things that you will think that, okay, I have to remember it. How will I remember it? Because there are too many things to remember. The simple short answer of that is you don't need to specifically remember them. The more you'll start working with it, the better understanding you'll get of them. First was that. Second is that, while maybe you might say, I don't know this tag, is it going to be problematic for me? No. Initial days of giving interviews, you might need to have a practice of using almost all the majorly used tags, or almost all the majorly used CSS properties. After and onwards, right, you can easily Google out those properties. You can easily find them on Stack Overflows. And it's a very usual thing that everyone does in the industry. So you don't need to panic upon saying that, okay, I don't know this, I don't remember this. So should I start noting them down? Should I start, remembering them? It's not the thing that we would expect you to do. So that's a quick, short, I hope, confusion that you might have. We have cleared it up. Now let's actually talk about this lang thing. Then let's actually talk about this meta and etc. things like that. So the very first thing that we have to talk about is this: what was this lang, right? And how come it is not, it is not something which we have discussed? Because we have discussed that there is something called a tag, which has something like a starting point, which has something like a closing point, right? What is this then? This does not seem like a tag to me. The thing that it is called as an attribute. And what exactly is an attribute? An attribute is just like a extended feature, or it's just like a characteristics that you're given to a tag. You have a tag which serves a specific purpose. For example, you wanted to have a headline, so you'll say double underline that particular thing. The publisher will put it as a headline. But maybe you want the headline to be of a specific font, you want the headline to be of a specific height, you want the heading to be of a specific nature. And you said that double underline will obviously mean that is that has to be created as a heading. But what if you want to give more specification to that? To give more specification, what do? We give attributes. And this is how we write attributes. Exactly in the starting of your of your tag, we attach something like an additional information, and we say that it is a tag, it is an attribute. This is how an attribute looks like. And what exactly is this attribute doing? This attribute is just telling your browser that, dude, whatever whatever is the mode of this language, this is written in English language, right? Mode of the language of the page means whatever content you are putting into this language, into this web page, will be written in the English format. So maybe if someone asks you to find a website which has a relevant information into English language, then your browser might suggest this page. We will talk about that, how browser are going to suggest your pages, what is about the keywords, what is about the parsing that your browsers do or your search engine do. We will talk about that. But I hope the second line is understandable now, that it is just telling that the mode of the language that we are using in the page is English. It's not talking about the tags, right? Tags are always written in this own language. You cannot write the tags in Hindi or in your regional languages. We are talking about the information that we are going to put inside the page. Exactly, right. Attribute can be added as sort of like additional information to the tag, right? Tags are very specific. Tag has a very generic purpose. For every minute thing, you are not going to create a new tag, right? Just that if you want more specification onto the specific feature or the specific thing, you can add a attribute, relevant attribute accordingly. This is what a attribute can do for your tag, right? So far we have seen about, we have talked about HTML tag, we have talked about head tag, we have talked about body tag, and all of these tags were coming in a group, right? It's just like they're couple, right? Wherever you use a opening tag, you have to use a closing tag. This, by the way, is an opening tag. This is a closing tag. And how can you differentiate between both of them? This is written normally. This is written normally, but we just have a slash in front of it, right? It's just called as a closing tag. And wherever you want to extend the functionality, for example, I want to have a text which is boldified. So I'll write certain things. Hello world, I am using HTML, or I'm learning HTML. I'm writing the following lines, right? And I want to have few words as a boldified text. So I can select the boundary from where till where I want to get a boldified text. Maybe I want to just boldify this learning and HTML part. So I can say, sorry, This is autocomplete that happened. If I say this, then only these words are going to have an effect of the following tag that I've used. जो मैंने tag use किया उसका effect इन्हीं words पे होगा. So what is this? This is a container tag, we say in technical terms, that it comes in pair. It has an opening part, it has a closing part. But it's not that every tag is going to be a container tag. Every tag might not have a starting and might not have an end. What happens is some tags are also written lonely, right? They are single, right? Unlike they are single like most of us. I don't know about your status, but it's just a fun stuff that I'm doing. Right? Don't take it very personally. But yeah, so in that particular thing, right, you can see this meta tag, right? I'll just uncomment this line and then I'll just explain it to you. That you can see this tag is written meta, that's good, but you cannot see any closing tag of that, right? Can you see a slash meta, right? Something like this? You cannot see a tag written like this, right? Because this is not a container tag and this is just an empty tag, right? Empty tag means a tag which is written like single also. You don't need to exactly write a closing tag for that. And that is what is a difference between a container and empty tags. Again, nobody is going to ask you specific things about define a container tag for me, define an empty tag for me, but it is just one terminology which I believe you need to have in your mind, right? So two type of tags. One is a tag which comes into pair. One is a tag which simply can be written lonely. Meta is one that tag. One more thing which I want to tell you is that earlier I've written this, right? And if this is not a valid thing in HTML, is it going to give us an error? Is it going to crash the system? Is it going to give red errors or something like that? The answer is no. HTML is one sort of language, very simple sort of language, which does not throw errors. ये आपको errors नहीं throw करेगा कि you have used a different tag, you have used something which is not a valid tag in here, then I'm going to throw an error. It is not going to do that. Maybe it is going to avoid this, or maybe it is going to print it as a normal stuff, right? So there could be multiple things that it can do depending upon situation, but you are not going to get an error from HTML anytime in your while you're in your development phase, right? So ये चीज था about it. Now let's actually talk about the tags that we have used here, a meta tag and another meta tag. Right? What is the reason of using them and why we have written so lengthy tags here and there? Any other questions? If we want to use another language, yeah, tag will obviously be same in any language. It's just that the content that you're writing in your page. Yeah, to emotional. See, I told you, right? I was just chilling. I was just, joking. Sorry. Don't take it personally and don't think that, okay, it's a reality check that they're giving. Self-closing that we can also say. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so meta tag में क्या होता है, right? What happens in the meta tag is basically it. First of all, what do you mean by meta, right? What happened? अच्छा मैंने यहाँ पे लिख दिया क्या कुछ? I don't know how it came here, but anyways. So as I was saying that, what happens with meta is, I mean, what exactly is meta? Meta basically says what it's already added. Anyways, you can avoid the thing that is coming here. It is just an additional extension that I have added for the better programming. That it's I guess it's called error lens. Right now, while working with HTML, CSS, you don't need to worry about it. While you work on very crazy level stuff, like you are writing the business logics of a specific thing, then it really helps because it helps you to write code in a more neat and in a more, in a more conventional way. So you might see these types of warnings coming here. Just totally ignore it. There is nothing sort of seriousness that we need to follow here. Yeah. What is meta, by the way? Meta is basically information about information, right? So when I say meta, meta means ki, you are giving some information about your web page that you have created. So that means whatever you write inside those meta tags will portray as a advertisement stuff or will portray as a overall summary of your page, right? Now, with this two meta tags we have used, one is a character set and one is for the sort of like, what do you say? It is for the responsivity, what we call. You might not understand the term responsivity right now, but it is a term, right? That how your website is capable of responding to different screen sizes. If you're opening your web page on a mobile screen, how will it adapt accordingly? If you are opening your web page on a desktop device, will it adapt accordingly? So different devices को वो कैसे adapt करता है? This line number 4 that we have written, this is going to judge that, or this is going to decide the behavior of that. Like it has a role in deciding it. It's not that only using that line you can create your responsivity, but it plays a role in that. Right now, I'll just briefly talk about it. I'll not go into the width equal to device width, initial scale equals to 1, because this is a totally different sort of discussion that we will do someday in the responsibility class. I'll just give you the overall perspective of why meta tags are used. This simply says that responsibility has to be handled in a specific manner. But take one example that you go to the internet and you try to search for maybe best hotels around me, right? I'll say best hotels around me. Again, I'm not going to search it out because I really don't want the Google to spam me around with those suggestion. Okay, you can check into this hotel and etc. Right? For example, if you search a specific keyword, if you do a specific type of search, what happens is that there is a whole different domain, right? That is called as search engine optimization. All the keywords are put in, right? Your Google has some searching algorithms which will basically pick out the words, which will go to almost all the web pages, right, which are present on the internet, right? They are going to scroll through all of them and they are going to find that according to your location, according to your preferences, according to different scenarios, what could be the best website to show you as a first result. And not only this, according to the search engine relativity, because it's not that it's always coming as an organic result. Many people do make sure that their business show on top because of by running some advertisement, by running some promotionals, and by paying Google a fees for doing so. So what happens is that there is a particular domain, right, which which requires you to show this complete perspective or the complete summary of your web page within a few words. You can highlight that what is a keyword that you have in your web page. Like if you're searching for hotels, if you're searching for near Gurgaon, if you're searching for hotel, 5-star hotels, if you're searching for within 5 kilometers or something, right, this could be the best website to view it from. So this is type of summary that you can put in the meta tags, and you can put it, suppose for an example, if you search for my name, if you search for Cuvette, right, you'll get maybe profiles of maybe Atul, you'll get maybe profiles of Sudhanshu, you'll get profiles of other co-founders or whatever, right? So how is that possible? Because they might have added a keyword, they might have added some relevant things in the meta tag, and that's why Google crawler or Google's search engine algorithm might be able to pick it up, and then it is showing it on the top, right? So that is the whole purpose of having it is a main part where the meta tags are used. I'm not going to talk much about how you can make sure that your website always comes on top, how you can make it more search friendly, because that requires a total different domain, and that is itself a complete different study. So I hope you have understood about what I was trying to say about meta tags. Although I took some time to elaborate it, I took some time to relate it with some example, but I believe it's still good, right? We don't have any problems into understanding that. Will we not throw? No, we will not receive any error if we even write a wrong tag. Head tag isn't opening. Head tag might be okay. See, I think what happened there only was कि मैंने वो change किया था ना. See, I got it why it happened that way. मैंने वहाँ meta tag close करने की कोशिश कर रहा था, right? I was trying to do this. I was trying to close the meta tag, but head got completely. I've removed it, right? तो उस वजह से the head was automatically renamed. What I have is if I change any of the tag, the other tag also changes, right? I have this extension, so that's why that happened, right? That was totally my mistake. I believe this is perfectly fine. Would Google still recommend ads even if we have search for? Again, that's a totally different point, Akshat. Sorry, Akshat. I am not willing to go there. That is a different study that will keep for maybe someday else. We might discuss it someday other. Perfect. So इतना तो देख लिया. अभी एक देखते हैं. What if आपको बहुत curiosity है? Maybe you're too curious to say that whatever web page I'll create, I'll add my keywords. That okay, the website is created using this by creating this person, or maybe please add so and so keywords. So whenever any person is searching for those keywords, my web page should be on top. Although this does not happen that easily, इतना simple straightforward नहीं होता है. But for an example, if you want to put some information about your page, what you can do, you can say meta, right? You can just do it like this way, and then you can say two attributes we give. We gave name. In name, you can say maybe keyword. You can say author, whatever you want to say, right? In content, you can say maybe I'll say my name. I'll maybe write what I can say my sort of the username that I use and things like that, right? So this is the type of behavior that you can do, and not only this, you can say keywords, and then you can say. Again, I guess name and description is the thing that we use. I'm still not very sure with it. uh, yeah, you can even go with content, or you can even go with description, right? Name and description, I think, is the best thing that we use as a attribute here. But one thing which I wanted to tell you, that these things can be added, and you can utilize them later when you want to make sure that your website comes up on top. Yes. Uh, See, there are lots of extensions, right? I don't want to overcomplicate it with you by telling to so and so extension. All these, it's, I believe it's a personal choice, and it comes on when you'll actually start doing things. Na, jab aap cheeze karne lagoge na, then you'll get to know, okay, this extension might help me, this thing might help me. So it's a eventual process. So one and two more extension, I'll just tell you, like a live server, I'll tell you about. I might tell you about a basic like bracket colorizers or something. Everything else is a self journey, I would believe, right? And बहुत सारे extension डाल के भी it's not a good thing to do. बहुत ज़्यादा ही simplified हो जाता है code करना. If you write so many extension, if you have so many extensions now, then you are actually not writing everything on your own. That is not correct. In initial days, you should write things on your own. Do that mistakes. Should not have an autocomplete feature or something like that, so that you get to know, okay, what exact errors you do on a day-to-day basis. But anyways, we have got the idea about how meta tag work. And this meta tag I'm not talking much about right now. It's just for the responsibility of your web page. We will definitely talk about it once we have to discuss the responsibility. Let's quickly talk about this because we have not finished it. It is basically telling the character set that you're using with your web page, right? Character set, what is it? Character set is basically that you have different languages across different parts of the world. Every language have different symbols. Every language or everything has a different annotation and things like that. For example, in Greece, you might be using different symbols. In Hindi, you might be using some different symbols. In mathematical expression, you might be using different symbols. So there has to be a Unicode, or there has to be a unification of what symbol can be represented with a very unique code. So character set is that only. And in that character set, UTF-8 is one type of classification we have. And UTF-8 is considered to be a unicoding, which is very, very widely used. So that is why by default, UTF-8 is the encoding that comes along with your page. Right now, you don't have to worry much about encoding or how we are going to encode and these symbols and stuff like that. This is going to automatically done by your browser, but it is a good practice to mention the UTF coding. And if you are not getting it, if you want to have a much idea about it, you can refer to some articles wherein encoding is discussed in a much detail, wherein UTF-8, UTF-16s are discussed, and the differences between them are discussed in a in a much detailed manner. Right now, I believe this thing you don't need to go much about. Right. So we have quickly concluded the meta. It's not quickly, but yeah, we have concluded the meta part, and we have also tried to expand our horizon by looking into things from this and that perspective, which I believe is very, very important when you're learning things at the very initial days. Right. If I could have not explained you about, okay, there is something called as search engines optimization, there is something called as crawlers, which crawl through almost all the web pages that is present in the internet, and then tries to segregate them. Okay, this all is a relevant thing for my Google search, and this all is not a relevant search for my Google search. In the relevant search, what should be coming on top, what should not be coming on top, right? What should be the preference the user might be giving, and things like that, right? So ye sari cheezein we have explained. We have tried putting some lights over there also, so that you get to know that there is also one more field which is existing in the tech market. In a short summary way, I can say meta tag is basically used to share information about your web page, so that whenever crawler is growing through your web pages, crawler basically it's sort of an algorithm which your search engines run on top of your web page, ताकि आपके पेज का overall summary वो देख सकते हैं, so that they can see the summary of your whole page, and then they can decide whether to show this page or not to the user. Yes. Also for scrapping, also you can say. Yes, exactly. You don't need to do anything with the boilerplate code that comes by default, and just experimenting things around so that you get to know, okay, there is this, there is that, and this is utilized in this way, and this is utilized in that particular way. Right? It's just a thing that I was explaining. Now, with that, I believe you have a complete idea about the whole document or the structure of your web page. Although we took a very, very long time into concluding it, but I hope yahan tak there is no problem. You are pretty good with tags. You are pretty good with empty tags, container tags, head part, doc type declaration, everything that we have discussed so far. Okay, container tag basically it's the tag that has an opening and that has a closing tag also. Closing and opening you have already seen. That is called as a container, and an empty is basically it's written lonely only without a closing tag, or self-closing, what people like to call. You might ask, what are the example of containers? What are the example of that? I'll just quickly show you this. Before doing that, I'll just give you one example that I've created this whole page, but I've not seen the outcome of this, right? So what I want to do, I have to go inside here and inside the folder where I've located it. And inside there, what I can do, I can simply click on this file and it will open in the default browser. And this is the outcome of that. You can see, right? It says, hello world, I'm learning HTML in a very, very blank and in a very dumb manner, in a very dull manner. It is, we are receiving it, right? But what I can do, I can just zoom it a little bit. I'm just zooming it so that you can see the text correctly. Yeah. Suppose I am doing those changes now. अभी मैं कुछ changes कर देता हूँ यहाँ पे and enjoying it. And just do this. And if I just go back to the page, you'll see it is not reflected because you have to refresh the page. And as you have reflected, as you have refreshed, you are able to see the refresh information here. But one more thing is that you're not going to do these changes too frequently, adding a thing there, then refreshing the page, adding a thing there, refreshing the page. One more thing is your VS Code might not even have an autosave feature. Whatever is happening in my VS Code is whatever I'm writing is getting saved instantaneously. So I don't need to hit Control S. Maybe this could be a thing that whatever you are writing, you have to hit Control S first and then go back to your web page to see the outcome. So please make sure that if you have enabled autosave or not. If not, you have to manually Control S every time you want to see the refresh changes. But anyway, I think that is good. So what is this issue and how we can fix it? Is that there's one good thing which most of the tutorials and most of the instructors say when the very first thing is, aap ek kaam karo, you can just do one thing. Go to this part. There is an extension part. Go to this part and just search for something called as Search for something called as live server. And that's it. That is a very first link. That is a very first, extension that you'll get. And try to hit this install button from here. And what will happen afterwards is once you've installed it, right? And then you'll find this go live button here. And what you can do, you can just hit on this one. And now you can just close the last one. I don't really need it. I'll just zoom in this also. Yeah. So now whatever change you're going to make here are going to reflect instantaneously to your web server. Enjoying it, and you can write something like this, and you can see without even reloading it, you are going to see the changes. So this is the very first thing that we have learned. That is basically how this stuff of actually seeing the changes live can be implemented in the VS Code. And by that, congratulations on creating your first page. And we have just started with HTML, and we have started creating our web pages. By the way, I hope you know this, that a web page is a basic page that can be opened on the internet, right? That can be opened across World Wide Webs, right? So this, if you were successfully able to host it, we will talk about how will you host it. Then this page that you have just created is not going to be limited to with you. The world is going to see that, right? Anyone can approach this with a specific URL and they can see the outcome that you have created by writing some dummy or some very, what should I say? A very simple lines of code. We will obviously move ahead and we'll try to create good structures. We'll try to give styles here. We'll try to give too many things. But that I believe is very, very satisfactory if you are doing this for the very first time. Right? So यहाँ हमने एक बहुत basic page बना लिया है, and we have understood the components of HTML. And component. Let me quickly see if you have any questions. Container also called an element. Yes, we will talk about what is an element and what is a attribute. We have already talked about. I'll just talk about creating more elements and how do we give names and some other examples of elements also. So अभी यहाँ तक करने के बाद, what I want to do is I don't want to have a basic heading. I want to have multiple things in my page. In multiple things, what I will do is I'll say exactly after this, I want to say how or what about you? What about you guys? I'm just going to ask this question to the crowd, right? So once I do this and I go back here, you can see it's something which is not meeting my expectation, right? Maybe I want to put this out loud in a very, in a very bold manners. I want to do that. How can I do that? Obviously, I have a tag to fix that issue. I'll say I'll be using a heading tag. I'll be just using this. I'll just use this particular thing. And now you can see the change, right? It has suddenly moved out in a more prominent way, in a more, larger, in a more bold way. and that I have done using something called as a heading tag. There are 6 tags that we use in heading. It starts from H1 and it goes all the way till H6. And no, I know the next question that you might be asking, sir, why not H7? Why not H10? What if I write H20? It's not going to work. It's from H1 till H6 only. And H1 being the largest. And just I'm writing some random tags, some random heading. I'm not writing H3, H4, etc. I hope you know that H1 is the largest one, H2 is the second largest, so on and so forth. I hope you can see the visual difference between all of them, right? So that's about the heading tags. And generally the perspective of generally the purpose of using a heading tag is just to put out something as a heading, and so that it can highlight over your page. Although the question might arise is that what if I want to have more larger heading? What if I want to have more bolder headings? What if I want to have heading of a specific height and specific width? How can I do that? To do that, you can use any of these tags, any of these heading tags, and then write some custom styling on top of it. इसके ऊपर आप अपना custom styling करा सकते हो. Custom styling means you want to get the text more larger, you want to get the text more bolder. All of this can be done by writing the custom styles, which we will do later on when we will talk about CSS part of it. I hope heading is also making sense. The basic tag about bold is also making sense. We can also talk about underline text. We can also talk about in italicizing the text. These small formatting tags I'm not explicitly talking about because I believe you will be able to experiment these things once we move ahead with the course, and we'll give you some small sort of minor assignment key. You have to create a page which has following heading, which has following text in a specific manner. You'll be able to answer them, right? Any questions about formatting tags? Any basic questions about all the topics that we have discussed today, discussed till now? Okay, about elements, some people were asking, right? So what happens is that this you are saying, right? This is consisting of two parts. This is a tag, and this is a content that you are having. What I generally, I mean, what is a technical term of saying this is whatever is a tag and whatever is the content that it includes, the complete part of it is called as element, right? Even if it has an attribute, right? अगर मान लो एक attribute होगा इसमें, for example, let's say ID. ID is an attribute that we use. Don't worry about it. I'll talk about it later. But ID attribute hai, it's just an additional feature that we are giving to our element. So the complete things from H1 till this point and till the end, this is what we are calling as a element, right? So whenever we say we have this element, we want to modify this element, we want to remove this element, we want to do operation on this element, this is exactly what we mean in HTML. Perfect. So that is about the basics of the formatting and the basics of this. Let us see what else we have to talk about. Although I have a lot of things to talk about HTML in the current class. We have talked about basics, right? कि क्या होता है HTML में and how things works. We have talked about this. We have talked about the structure of the HTML document now. And we have partly talked about the basics formatting tags also. Let's talk about something interesting and something worth noticing, some behaviors which are worth noticing. The very first thing that we can notice from here is, maybe I'll not write too much of headings now. I'll just have one only heading. I think यहाँ पे I can say I am learning it via Cuvette. Something like this you can say, right? You can say a specific thing like that. And if I go back and if I just try to see the outcome of this, this might not be exactly what you have written here, right? You might have written this next line into the, I mean, might have written this line in the very next line after completing this step. But here you are not receiving it in the next line. You're receiving it as a continuity of the previous line. This is one strange thing to notice. Second thing is, how come maybe, writing this is making it into come the same line, but how come this next line is coming to separately new line? Matlab, few lines are getting continued and few lines are getting breaked automatically. This two, sort of interesting observation we have done. Another observation that you can do is, maybe you can say, okay, after using a tag, a new line start every time. So after using a new tag here, a new line was started here. But why not it started when we have used a new tag here as a bold tag? That is an interesting part. Maybe we can say, I want to give this as a word play. I want to just do a word play program, I want to call it. So if I give too many spaces here and if I go back, you'll see maybe we are not, again, this is a sort of this will give you a confusion, but yeah. Now see, can you see it? We have given so many spaces, but we still received only one space here. So what all is this, right? How HTML is behaving slightly differently when it should behave almost like जो लिखा है वो दिखाना चाहिए था. Whatever I've written, it should just simply show me the output of that. Why is it doing some strange behaviors like this? This is a basic thing that we need to talk about HTML. I hope most of the people, and I believe most of the people do know about this already, but still, let's discuss it. The very first thing is HTML is written in such a way that it is going to ignore all of your vacant spaces and all of your unnecessarily line breaks. Because while you are creating the, while you are, printing out the stuff, or while you are filling the structure of your web page, and while you are filling the content, you will write it according to your convenience, right? You'll not continue the writing the same paragraph in one single straight line. You'll give line breaks, you'll give some spaces, you'll give some paragraphs and etc. Because it will be easier for you to understand that language. But if you'll write it in this way, and maybe whatever the way that you're using HTML starts to display it in the very same way, then it could be problematic. So what HTML does, it eradicates all the line breaks, all the unnecessary line breaks, and all the unnecessarily extra spaces. मान लो कहीं आपने space दिया, if you've given extra spaces somewhere without explicitly telling your HTML that I'm giving an extra space, and you have given maybe line breaks and you have not told your HTML that I'm giving a line break, then it is going to ignore that. This is exactly what is happening here. Second discussion that we have done was, how come this thing was coming into a different line and how come this was not coming in a different line? We have another thing that we generally talk of here is, there are different type of categorization, and that is an inline block of elements and a block level of elements, or block elements. Inline elements means that type of all the elements or type of all the tags which do not occupy unnecessarily complete space or unnecessarily extra area, and they just come with a continuation of what you are doing. Suppose this was a continued line that you were following. So while using a bold tag, it will not disturb the line. It will not say that, okay, I am a different tag, I want special treatment, I will come into the next line. It is not going to do that. It is going to continue it from where we are doing, and it will only occupy that much space, whichever is the content needed. Jitna content ko chahiye, how much if the content is requiring for the space, that much only it will give it to you. That's it. Right. So that's about an inline element. And since bold tag is an inline element, that's why it is continuing with the same line. It is not moving in the next line. What is happening with this H1 tag? H1, on the other hand, it's not an inline tag, or it's not an inline element. It is a block level element, or it is a block element. That clearly means whenever you use any block element, it will break the current flow of your line, and it will start from a new line, and it will occupy the current line. Even if you write any strange things after it, right? Anything you will write after it, right? It is going to totally put it into the next line. You might think that it is again a block element. It is not. But since this has occupied the current row, that's why this line has to come into the very next line. That is some interesting observation we have carried from the HTML. Like it avoids all the unnecessary space, it avoids all the unnecessary line breaks, and it gives the outcome in the following ways. You might be asking, then how can we give the extra space? How can we give the line breaks here? So to give line breaks, it is fairly simple. You can use something like a like a tag, and the tag that you can use is a BR tag, which is a self-closing, or you can say which is a a empty tag. If you write this, what is going to happen? It is going to break the current row. जो current row है उसको break कर दोगे, that has to be broken down from here. That has to be, and it will start a new line, and it will just go on like this way. You can see now whatever I've written after this BR tag, it's coming into the very next line. I hope all of this is making some sense now. I'll talk about P tags, and every time we'll talk about, I'm writing things from a very naive perspective, right? For the people who have already been thorough with paragraphs, with all the tags, they might say that it should be obvious, but we have to also think about from the very first audience that we have who are just getting started with HTML. And trust me, it is not going to be that every class will only talk about layman terms only. We'll obviously pace up a little bit in the upcoming classes. Perfect, right? So break ho gaya. Now the question comes is, how can we give extra spaces? So to give one extra space, you can just give a space. It will acknowledge it. But to give more than one space, what you need to do, you need to say, there is a special thing that we will use that we call as HTML entities, right? I'll just write the thing for you. Then I'll NBSP, and then I'll talk about it. Sorry, NBSP hota hai. Yeah, and will write it multiple times. I've used three special symbols. This is one part of it. As percent NBSPN colon semicolon, I would say, and I've written it 3 times. So what will happen as a response? You can see there are exactly 1, 2, and 3 spaces here. I'm not sure if you're able to count it, but yeah, there are exactly 3 spaces in here. Yes, it interpret it as a single space, right? Although the full form of that is non-breaking spaces, right? So this represents one non-breaking space, means your line will also not break and you'll just have one space here. We'll talk about the HTML entities. In fact, I'll give you as a small task to do after the current class. You just try to find out for HTML entities and let's see what you can get from HTML entities. And in fact, one more challenge I'd like to give you. I just want you to print this for me. I just want you to print this for me on your page. By printing, I mean don't actually, don't actually print it as a what do you say? Don't actually use it as a tag, but just print it as an information. Like जैसे आप print कराना चाहते हो, I just want to print. This is how HTML looks like. Something like that. I want you to print it without having even space. Like I want you to print it like this. While you'll try to do this, you'll eventually find out that HTML entities is one thing which can help us into doing the same thing. Because right now, if I do this, you might not see any HTML written. Because HTML is portraying it as a tag, which it is, but I don't want to portray it as a tag. I just want to portray it as a text. Right? Exactly. Right? Some people are even giving answers. So for those people, I just recommend you please go and learn and please go and search about HTML entities. There is nothing logical you have to know about it, but there's something that is worth reading for. Perfect. So HTML entities we have talked about inline, we have talked about block elements, and we can talk about other formatting tags, but I believe we have to extend the class, which I don't want to because that will be too much. So we have briefly talked about the whole structure of it. We have briefly talked about so many different things. From that, I believe the basic introduction of HTML can be concluded in the current class, right? From the next class onwards, we will take more interesting things like division. How do we use it? We can also talk about maybe examples of how different elements can give you different sort of structure in your page, right? All of this we'll talk about it. From the next time onwards, I'll write even one topics. Since this was just an introductory class of HTML, that's why I've just given a brief idea about HTML. We have talked about inline. We have talked about container NMT. We have talked about extra breaking spaces. We have talked about we have talked about some heading tags and etc. See, I've not shared this Jamboard. I think we run. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but yeah. What we will do from maybe from the next classes is that we'll the Jamboard that I've created. I'll even share this after the class, right? So you can have a reference of this. See, Chaitanya, right now you can just listen things, right? And I believe you should be just understanding, grasping things. And what you can do after the class, you can just try to replicate what we have done in the class. Coding along, I don't believe it's a good practice. This is what exactly I was saying, right? That even if you're a seasoned player in HTML, right? The starting few classes, when I say that we are taking from a very layman perspective, you'll understand the reason of what we are doing and why we are doing it, right? This might help you understand or know things from a better perspective, right? Because I believe everyone has at least something to teach as a new concept to everyone, right? Even if I'm working with HTML from past 2 years, I'll still have something to learn from you guys or to learn from any other person. So that's why we are just saying that initial few days we'll go slowly. We'll try to understand the reason of what we are doing and why we are doing it. I'll try to relate it with something reasonable. It's not that I'll say कि ऐसा ही करते हैं तो ऐसा ही करो. It's not that. I'll try to yeah. Why R and BRN Institute regarded as good? See, the thing that why writing break rows and why writing this NBSP are not correct, not considered as a good practice. That we will know once we know about what all possible options we have, right now for the timing, we don't have all the other options. Like we don't have anything like layouts we cannot create. We don't have, we have not talked about maybe, flex boxes. We have not talked about a couple of things. When we'll actually go and talk about them, then would be the right time to talk that, okay, this is something which we were doing earlier. This is an alternative of doing that. So what should be chosen and what not, and why not, and exactly. BR and NBSPs are two different things. BR is basically breaking the row. NBSP is basically non-breaking spaces. It's not going to break your row. It is just going to add a space. How many more classes? I'm not sure how many more classes. I think 2 or 3 more classes will be there on HTML part, because HTML does not require too many classes. No, it is not required to, it is not mandatory to join all the doubt classes. If you have doubt, if you want to get your doubt cleared in the live sessions, it is, you can join the class. Else there is no need. If you don't have doubt, you don't need to join the class. Perfect. So that's about, I believe, HTML, and that's a basic introduction about it. Any quick questions if you want to ask, do quickly ask it, or else I'm going to conclude the class. If everything is cool from your end, you can quickly give a thumbs up, and then we can conclude the class also. It's just so that I get to know that you guys have understood it. Yeah, Redux will also be taught. It will be sort of an optional lecture that we will take, but yeah, we'll. Sure. See, what happens with HTML entity, I'll just quickly share a quick uh, description about HTML entities, is that these help us into using the reserved symbols or using some reserved things in HTML. मान लो, you cannot use this tag like structure. आप ये tag like structure कुछ भी लिखोगे ना, तो what it will do is it will try to assume that it is a tag. But what if you want to get this get the access of this angular brackets and this things like that? You can use an HTML entity. It is just like a replacement. It's just like a code to use for specific symbols. अगर आपको rupee का symbol use करना है, if you have to use a specific symbol, you can use HTML entity to relate to that. No, the class is like for generally. I don't believe the class is up to 10:30. I just have to check it. I believe it was a 1 hour class only. Might be the agenda that might be given to you. The invitation that might be given to you could be of 9 to 10:30. But initial classes, I just planned to give you an overview, because what is going to happen is that in the very next class, you will receive some resource video which we have prepared, in which we'll talk about the extension of what we have done till this point. You have talked about the basics. In the next class, you'll be knowing about paragraph tag. You might be knowing about division tag, and that will be a recorded video, right? And we might have certain articles and etc. attached with it. Please mandatorily go through that, because the very next class that we will take, we'll take references from those videos. We'll assume that you have gone through it and you have understood the concept from there. Because if we take all the live classes, then it will be too much. If we take all the recorded classes, then that will be too bad. So we have added mix and match of those. So whatever is not so important to highlight in the live class and whatever is sort of easily understandable, we have added that as a resource video. We have added that as a recorded video, and remaining part, whichever needs a discussion, whatever needs the live interaction, we have added a live class for that. Right. And not taking questions like what is necessary to get a job and things like that. Or self-study days will be assigned. Yes, generally, classes will be on alternative days. Like the other alternative days, you'll be given a resource video to view, which will be a recorded video, and might be given some small assignments in between. Okay, so again, we are not talking about JavaScript right now, but I believe JavaScript info is the best resource that you can ever get. JavaScript info, just try to search it for. It has all the things at a one single place. Should we refer to accept? Right now, for the initial days, you can just focus on creating things and just go to the documentation. It's a slow and steady process. Everyone has their own taste. Everyone will different things will suit upon different people. So it's not something one size fits all nahi hai. So you'll eventually get to know, okay, what you are getting more from, maybe from what documentation. So it's just too early to discuss upon all these things like YouTube videos and etc. It's just a simple task that I was suggesting कि आप ऐसा कर सकते हो, you can search for HTML entities and you can try to search for some elements, you can try to search for some tags from this class. Yeah, you will be given that resource videos on your dashboard. Varun will upload that I think tomorrow. Then you'll be having the access, you can just view those videos and you can just consume that content. It will be uploaded I think on almost daily basis. It's not that from day one you'll get access of all the recorded videos. Once the first class is complete, you'll get the resource video of next upcoming class, and so on and so forth. It goes step by step. Right, perfect. So with that, I believe a basic idea of HTML is done from my side. All of you have understood it also. We will meet in the next class from where we are going to proceed with the information that we have possessed. And I'm assuming all of you will consume the content that will be given to you, and you will try to practice it, because the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. Else you'll just keep on thinking I'm attending the class, that should be enough. No, that should not be enough. You'll get it on the dashboard, don't worry. Perfect. So I'm now closing the recordings because unnecessarily extending the recording is also not good.